Hey y'all, I'm Derek, and welcome back to 31 Days of Found Horror. So tonight we have a short film again. It's about 55 minutes long, and it's by a channel called LJR Official. The movie is called The Woods, and it came out just this year, so it's good to see people making movies during this quarantine. I don't know what else to say about this movie, except it's short and the thumbnail has a noose on it. Well, let's get started. In all my days, I never thought that I would say that I have seen the Blair Witch Project as done by prepubescent teenagers in Australia. So the providence is that the police found these two phones just dumped in the middle of the woods by Salem, and it had this footage on it. And it's the property of two kids that have gone missing. Okay, I can deal with that. The movie starts off with the kids being dropped off at the forest by their parents, and the boy, Lachlan, is explaining the lore that he's going to investigate because he's a vlogger and he does this sort of thing. And he says that they're in the woods by Salem. Apparently, in 1693 here in Salem, two sisters were burned as witches for allegedly kidnapping and murdering several children. Now, I knew for a fact that nobody was burned at Salem because I used to be a big fan of learning about the Salem witch trials. So I just wanted to make sure at this point if this is the Salem in Massachusetts or if there's a Salem in Australia. And the only Salem I could find in Australia was a Lutheran church in the middle of this olive grove. But on top of that, his lore states that it happened in 1693 and Australia wasn't colonized until 1788, so we're to assume that they are in Salem, Massachusetts. So it's the Blair Witch Project done by kids set in Salem, Massachusetts, but filmed in Australia. That's a lot to go through. So he's going into these woods to investigate ghostly sightings of the witches. And he brings his little sister, Eliza, to film with him, and she seems a lot younger. So they're walking through the woods. He explains the lore for the second time when they're not mumbling, because it's just a lot of walking and mumbling at this point. I thought this was funny. They're literally in the woods, but you can literally just look over to the side and see where the clear area of the park is through the woods, because of course it's filmed in a park. So at this point, I actually thought, oh, this is going to be like a modern day Hansel and Gretel. There's a boy and a girl lost in the woods hunted by a witch. Ooh, little did I know. So I think that's what they were actually going for, but it just didn't turn out that way. So they're walking. It's 13 minutes into the movie. Lachlan has told the lore of the movie twice, and they've already gotten lost. Good job. At this point, Eliza, as I said, she appears to be much younger than Lachlan. She's really, really scared. And at this point, I'm just asking, where are the parents? And also, Eliza's not wearing socks or the proper shoes for hiking, so they weren't really expecting to do much on this trip, were they? And for the next 5 minutes, it's literally just Eliza screaming, I want to go home, I'm scared. And Lachlan yelling, we're lost! And Lachlan decides, since it's getting late and they're lost in the woods, they're going to have to camp in the woods. And at the same time, I'm asking, where are your parents? You guys are obviously not old enough to be out on your own in the middle of the woods in a foreign country. And Eliza is really afraid that the witch is going to get them, but Lachlan is trying to tell her that the witch isn't real. So she starts this argument that, so you're doing all this and it's a lie? You mean the vlogger lied? And that night, both kids are filming at the same time, so all we really see are two cameras and a lot of trees. And they're complaining about the situation. At that moment, when I realized that they're filming on phones, I had to ask, why aren't they calling for help? You're lost in the woods. Dial 911 or actually 999, or even just your negligent parents. Get somebody out there to help you. Because seriously, they haven't made mention to the fact that they don't have service, so we're to assume that they do. A lot of the dialogue is just Lachlan telling Eliza he's sorry he got her into this situation, which is sweet, but he does it over and over and over again. Just because you say it so, don't make it true. So they hear something, and they decide to go investigate, taking enough time though to pack up everything. And then they run around aimlessly, and there's a talk fighting that leads into an argument, and there's acting! And so now they're lost even more. And at this point they finally bring up there is no service. Something they could have brought up a lot earlier to make it more plausible that they hadn't called their parents yet. They start walking again. And these kids don't know anything about survival. It's sad, because they just go off walking in a random direction. Yeah, that always works. And they end up getting cut off on all sides. And then there's a little title card that says Day 2. So if there's a Day 2, there's more than likely going to be a Night 2. Yay! They decide to walk down a trail, and they get lost even more, and Eliza is just so over it. She's like, I can't. She wants to help her brother out with his movie, but she's just so over being in the woods. They're looking for another place to camp, and you can hear cars passing in the distance, and they're trying to play it off as random thunder coming from nowhere. I love it. That's so great. Using what you have to make the story work. That's brilliant, kids. So they go into a thicket and they find a hole in the ground. And Lachlan jumps in to investigate, all the time telling Eliza, calm down, Eliza, it'll be fine. And he literally just goes in and takes pictures of the ground. And I'm pretty sure I saw a cigarette butt there. But then they hear something, so Lachlan climbs out of the hole as fast as they can, and they run right into a bramble bush. So their batteries are still going. I don't have an iPhone anymore, but whenever I had an iPhone, those batteries would die quick. So now it's Night 2, and Lachlan is describing what has all occurred through this entire experience, and he signs off for the night. Then he wakes up, and Eliza's gone. Oh no! He hears her scream and yell, help! So Lachlan goes running around trying to find her, and then he takes a moment to do his Blair Witch apology, where he does a really close-up, almost upshot of his nose, saying, I'm so sorry for doing this, I'm so sorry, Eliza. He's apologizing to Eliza for the 28th time, and he loves his parents and all that. But then he hears something and he starts running again, and he finds his sister lying on the ground. He starts cradling her because he really does love her, and he gets knocked out somehow, and the camera falls, and then we hear the horrible sound of a pregnant walrus. Oh. Honestly, that was the only thing to call it. They hear this like sound, and the first thing that came to my mind is, why is there a pregnant walrus in the middle of the woods of Salem? I made myself laugh. Nothing's more terrifying than the sound of a pregnant walrus. Okay, so that's the end of that part of the movie, and then it cuts to 2 weeks later, and the parents are being interviewed by police. It's literally Lachlan behind the camera. So he first interviews the dad, and then they interview the mom, and the mom is actually the best actor in the entire movie, which is sad. And then they interview the older brother, Mitchell, who I swear is just Lachlan, but apparently it is a different kid, but he looks just like Lachlan. But at the time, I really did think it was Lachlan, and so I wrote, Inception, Finkel is Einhorn. Because I'm stupid. And that's the end of the movie. This was literally the Blair Witch Project for prepubescent teens. It was really annoying how Lachlan kept having to comfort Eliza, even though Eliza looks like she couldn't be bothered. But kids, congrats on making a movie. Now, do a better one. The pacing was really slow, and the tension really couldn't build because every 5 seconds we had to make sure Eliza was okay, even though she looked like she couldn't be bothered. And most of the shots were either too dark to see, or it was just the kids looking at each other. All in all, I'm not mad though, because they did take a concept and they ran with it. So It is a movie, it's just not particularly a good one. As far as movies go, it wasn't the worst. That was a bit more rambling than I thought it would be. So have you seen this movie? If so, drop me a message down below and tell me what you thought about it. And of course, if you haven't seen this movie, it will be linked in the description so you can see what I'm talking about. Well, that's the end of this episode of 31 Days of Found Horror. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. And come back tomorrow for another found footage nightmare.